Good to see everybody. My name is Elizabeth Cunningham Bossart. It's beautiful here today. I don't know where it is where you are. We're in the San Juan Islands in Washington, and a huge storm came in, and all this lightning came, and then we're going to be here for about 30 minutes. 30 minutes, and then I'll stay on if anybody has questions. Yeah, short and sweet. So I'm just going to jump right in. I am starting a class this week, just a 4-week class called Exploring Dinacharya. And Dinacharya is a concept in Ayurveda. And then in the fall, I'll be starting my year-long accessible Ayurveda. And we're going to do food, health, well-being, where you are in your Ayurvedic life cycle, but also where you are location-wise, how that affects our health, what we can do about it. But today we're going to talk a little bit about Ayurveda and Dinacharya. So Dinacharya is a concept of these of kind of like morning rituals, morning routines. It can also be done in the evening as well. Those are called Ratracharya. Ratracharya are rituals or routines that you do at night, and Dinacharya are things that you do in the morning. And Dinacharya is comes from Dina, which is day or daily, and Charya, which is to be practiced or performed. So why Jess and I were talking about this and why we wanted to offer it is that, you know, what our minds are busy. Let's just say it as it is. Our minds are busy. There's a lot of inundation from external sources, screens, information, news, people. And the idea with Dinacharya, with morning routine, is that Ayurveda, Ayus Veda, the science of life or longevity, we really come from the perspective that it's a science of linking, that whatever we link to, whatever we're connected to is influencing our system. So if I am linking to my screen, then that, in some ways you could say you become your screen, right? I'm digesting the experience. I'm taking it in through my eyes. There's a kind of Agni or digestive fire in my eyes. I take it in, I'm digesting it, and it becomes part of me. So in Ayurveda, if it's a science of life and a science of linking, then I also want to think about, well, how do I change the pattern, whatever the old habit? Maybe it's a screen, maybe it's staying up late, maybe it's loud music maybe it's falling asleep to the television. I've seen that one a lot. Whatever, and again, it may not be perceived as a negative habit, but the idea is if I'm wanting to create a new pattern, a new samskara, I want to gradually bring in something else. So if this is the old pattern, the old samskara, I want to gradually link to something else to create a new samskara or a new pattern. So the morning routine and the morning rituals are really a way to create a new groove. I always talk about this idea of like a train track. And I've had this train track going for a long period of time, whatever the old habit was. I'm trying to move that train track to a new groove. And I'm wanting to start to link to something different. If I go too fast, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, cold turkey, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I'm only going to do this. I'm not going to do this old habit and I'm going to do the new habit. Then sometimes we find ourselves just swinging back to the old habit because the old habit has been there for so long. It's created so many of the old samskars, the old patterns in our mind and our body. We've digested that old experience so much that now we start to crave it. It's like the old habit becomes almost like a craving, like, oh, I know that. It's familiar. I want that. And if we go slow and steady in a trajectory, in a new trajectory, and we link with something new, we're creating a new samskara, a new pattern, a new train track. It's a lot easier to maintain that new pattern. The basis of Ayurveda and Dinacharya is that if we do these Dinacharya, the textual reference says if we do Dinacharya or morning routines, then my job is done. That's kind of what the textual reference is saying. It's saying this in and of itself will create health and well-being just by doing the Dinacharya or the morning routine. So not only am I creating a new habit, a new samskara, a new groove in my mind for positivity and positive ways of being, I'm creating what's called swastavrita. I'm creating health, vitality just by linking to new things that are creating balance in my system. So that's why I chose to just do a class on Dinacharya. People are like, Dina, what? But Dinacharya is, morning rituals that are really, oh, sorry, I saw someone that was sitting in the waiting room, so I just brought them in, Jess. They're really there as a way to create swastavrita of overall health and well-being. And, when I learned about them in Ayurvedic, training, I went, oh my God, I don't need to know anything about Vata Pitta Kapha. I don't need to know about anything about Ayurvedic cooking. This is all I have to do. Of course, it's a complete science. There's so many levels to it. There's so many layers to it, but it really is powerful. There are different texts that give some as 20 different things, 21. In the class, I'm going to do a handful of them. I'm going to pull out the ones that I see to be the most, you know, powerfully impactful to people's lives. In this class, I just want to talk a little bit about the first one from the Dinacharya list is called, it's basically the idea is that we wake up early. And we're like, oh, well, that seems pretty simple. But the idea is that if I start to link to something, whatever is on the Dinacharya, whatever's on the ritual list that we're going to go through in the class, if I start to link to that, whatever that is, it starts to create this new samskar, but it also takes up space. So there's less space to link to the things that create, imbalances in our system. So a lot of times I'll have people come to me who go to sleep with a screen and wake up with a screen. Or, wake up with coffee and go to bed with alcohol. All of those things are there other things that we're linking to, and they're creating other senses of imbalance in our system. Maybe once or twice, that's not, so impactful in the body, but over time, that's changing the trajectory of what's happening in the system. So when we start to link to something like number one of the Dinacharya, which is all about, waking up early, they call it the Brahma Muhurta time. So I'm going to just put this in the chat so everybody can look into it. So Brahma Muhurta, and again, I'm just giving it as one of many, possible things that you can do in your morning ritual, your morning routine. I say some people are uncomfortable with the word ritual. The idea is that you're waking up and you have a routine, and when you link to those things from the routine, you're creating a sense of balance in the body and you're changing the whole trajectory of your day. From my own experience, I'm going to go into what Brahma Muhurta, but I want to say this first. When I do my Dinacharya, I have a different day. It is a different day doing my Dinacharya versus not doing my Dinacharya. Dinacharya includes my morning practice. For some people, it might be prayer. So for some people, it might be a yoga practice. For some people, it might be a Tai Chi practice. Whatever that morning practice, there's also other things incorporated in because we are doing it during a very sattvic or pure time of day in the morning. So there's a lot of clarity that can come. There's a lot of, I call them the downloads that can come during the Dinacharya. You're doing your morning ritual and information, and it's not clouded by the day. It's not clouded by the screen. It's not clouded by someone you talk to. You wake up, you do your Dinacharya, you link to these things that are creating swastavrita or whole health in your body. Your whole trajectory of your day can be different. I find that when I travel, we travel a lot. We're traveling a little less, but it's like I have to make sure I do some version of my Dinacharya, because if I don't do the whole Dinacharya, because I don't do it all, 21 of them every time, then I know I have clarity. My communication is better. My eating habits, my digestion, all of these things are benefiting me from waking up, doing my morning Dinacharya, and having the day. And when I start teaching the class about Dinacharya, I almost felt like that's all I want to teach because it's so powerful in creating health and well-being in the body. So the first one in the list is called Brahma Muhurta. Brahma Muhurta is this idea of Brahma as being like God or godliness, that it is a time to link. And, some people feel uncomfortable with that word. You can say earth, spirit, myself, whatever you want to link to it. The idea is that you're waking up early, and it depends on where you are in your dosha, your constitutional tendencies, what that is, how, how that's manifesting in your body would determine the time that you would wake up. But the idea is that you're getting up in an early time when there's a quietness. There's a quietness in the mind, there's a quietness in the body. And this is a wonderful time. The textual reference talks about it's a wonderful time of learning. So if somebody was studying, it's a time to take in information because the mind has not been clouded or fuzzied, by the day. And it's also a time of prayer. If somebody has prayer rituals, it's a time of meditation. I have a lot of people I have seen in my practice where they like to stay up to in the night and write books. And there's a lot of writers. And I said, well, let's see if we can move it to the Brahma Muhurta, or the early morning time. So this is early morning waking, because waking. Because the idea is that when we wake up in an early time, the textual reference will talk about before sunrise, that there's this, it's just pure illumination is what they talk about. So if I wake up and I'm getting up in this Brahma Muhurta, or a very early time, and I'm linking through a practice, or maybe I'm writing, or maybe there's some learning, but there's some quiet and introspection and reflection. Of course, being a parent, that's harder. I'm learning how to do my Dinacharya being a parent. But I still do it. And what I notice is that the things that I then want to link to throughout the day, like I do a lot of work on the screen. So then I used to be a dancer. I still dance some. So I like to watch these dancing shows. But then I can go down a long road of dance show, which in some ways, okay, I'm linking to dancing. It's bringing me joy, but that much screen time, I'm working on the screen. I'm also then linking on through something I love on the screen. If I do my Brahma Muhurta, meaning I do my Dinacharya where I'm waking up, and I'm linking to something that is bringing sattva or purity or illumination into my space, then the desire, the craving for those, whatever that bad habit might be for you, is less. And it's experiential. There's not that I know of yet, has there been any studies, but just experientially from myself, from my clients, from my students, from my colleagues, what I see is you've created that space in the morning. You've linked to something very pure. The desire for something negative or busy, or what we would call rajasic of the mind, is less over time. So I wanted to just start with Brahma Muhurta and talk a little bit. So is anybody waking up really early right now? Let's see if Brahma, you can just put it into the chat if anybody's, I can't see anybody. Whitney's like, so. Cynthia's like, so. So, Susanna, yes. Okay, good. So the idea is not that, and again, it's gradual. So, yeah, no problem, Whitney. So the idea is that if we are, let's say I decide, okay, I took the Dinacharya class, and Elizabeth told me about, Brahma Muhurta, which is like a early, pure illuminating time to wake up, to do some practice. And I start to do it every day, right? I'm now like, the old pattern was here, like the 7 a.m. and now I'm doing this 6 a.m., 5:30 a.m. Very quickly, the old pattern will come back. So what I tell people is I move things by increments, because, again, some bodies will do well with that kind of instantaneous change, but most of us need the slow and gradual. So 5 minutes earlier, 10 minutes earlier, 30 minutes, gradual small increments of setting the alarm a little bit earlier over time. And then we now have created the new samskara, the new imprint. We've also started to move the train track in a slow trajectory, and now my body is accustomed to it. So now when I wake up, I can't imagine not doing my Dinacharya. I remember like learning up thinking, oh my God, there's no, I started studying in 2008 in India with my husband, and then I went to school for it in 2009. And it's a lot of information, but slow and steady, we start to link to that new samskara, and the desire for the other things are less because there's less space for them, but also because we've been linking to something that is so pure, so illuminating, so sattvic. Okay, there's a few other questions here. Let's just make sure I have them. Oh, good. Jess, I love your commentary. Okay, good. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about, and then I'm going to stay on at the end for people who have questions. If any have any clarifying questions, let me know. So the second Dinacharya that I wanted to talk to, I would say all Dinacharya, all morning rituals, all Ratracharya, which are nighttime rituals, will help us move from habits that aren't serving us to habits that are serving us. So we don't always have to know what those are. If we do the practices, then there's just a natural trajectory of moving towards things that are going to benefit us. And again, there's no study of that so far, but experientially, I have found that when I'm linking to my things from my Dinacharya, I'm linking through the things of my Ratracharya, so my morning and nighttime routines, that I'm doing my negative sort of patterning less often. Again, my vice are dance shows, a little bit of mystery. I like mystery shows as well. I'm married to someone who's not interested in television or shows at all. That is not his vice. But it's been, and I think a little bit of that, Ayurveda is like, you have a little fun, right? It wants you to have fun too. But when you start to find yourself, it starts to affect your relationships, your sleep, health, well-being, digestion. Those are when we can start to think about, when is a habit a positive habit versus a negative habit. So the second Dinacharya that I was going to bring up is this idea of tongue scraping. And some of you already probably tongue scrape. Does anybody already tongue scrape? Hi, Jenny. Sometimes, yeah. So tongue scraping something, when I learned about it in Ayurveda, I was like, no way, because I have a strong gag reflex. I was like, no, no, no. And one of my colleagues at some point was just like, just try it. And now I can't really imagine not doing it. And we'll go in the class talking more about what it's doing and all these things. But the idea is that it is not cleaning out your digestion. It's scraping your tongue that stimulates. The tongue is connected to every organ in the body. So when you scrape your tongue, you're creating a peristalsis in your digestive tract. So it will do this and start to kind of clean out what's called ama, or sticky residue. So scraping your tongue, people feel really satisfied if there's a coating on the tongue. I'm cleaning. That is actually not cleaning out our digestive tract. Scraping our tongue is igniting our digestive tract to actually move things through and clean itself out. But that is one of the ones that you could say directly is linked to swastavrita, or health, overall health and well-being. By scraping your tongue, you're working on your digestion. By working on your digestion, you're benefiting your entire body. So I would say that one, Brahma Muhurta is really beneficial for what our mind is linking to. When I'm getting up early, doing our morning practice is really affecting what our mind links to, or where our mind goes, what are we thinking about. If we're, angry or frustrated about something, or we're feeling anxious, Brahma Muhurta is very beneficial. I would say tongue scraping has more of sort of, I hate to you say bad habits, but sort of negative or imbalanced habits around digestion. So if somebody tends to snack or graze a lot or gets a lot of indigestion after eating or a lot of burping or gas, constipation, bloating, I mean, the list that goes on of what imbalances we can have with our digestion. I would say that is more benefited from scraping the tongue. Um, and what will happen over time with tongue scraping is that the coating on the tongue will reduce. So if you don't know what your tongue looks like, you don't need to go do it now, but when we're finished with the class, look at your tongue upon waking. If there's a coating, I like to get a tongue scraper that I don't know if we have them in a river group, but there's a wonderful one from Dr. Tung's Tung, where he has a little travel one that has little handles at the bottom, but it's a stainless steel tongue scraper, and there's a very simple way to do it. But when we link to this kind of Dinacharya, we're really setting ourselves up to be able to take in new food, new information more readily. Where the whole concept of Ayurveda is that we've slept and that there's been a level of subtle digestion in the night. So there's like tissue digestion or what's called Dhatu Agni, so digestion on your tissue level at night. And when we wake up in the morning and we scrape our tongue, we're also helping clear out all the experiences, emotions, and food and what's called ama or toxins from the day before. So we're kind of like coming into the day with a new clean slate. So it's sort of metaphorically, but also literally, we're cleaning the tongue to prepare ourselves for things to come in for the day. So this is another one that's very powerful in creating new samskars, new patterns, because we're taking out the old by scraping the tongue, removing the coating, and we're preparing ourselves to take in new information, new experiences, linking to new things throughout the day. So this is a very beneficial one around some scars or patterns around digestion or imbalances with digestion that really set us up for swastavrita or health and vitality. Oh, good. Just linked to the tongue scraper that I like. How many tongue scrapes? So a lot of people, when you do the class, if you do the Exploring Dinacharya, we'll go through the details and, more, there's like a video you can watch, but you're not pressing in really hard. It's like a light removal of the film on top of your tongue. There's some yogic practices that are more extensive around that. In Ayurveda, we sort of do these that are very doable. They're just light, it really depends. I mean, I'm not answering your question, Whitney, because it depends. It depends on the coating on the tongue. If somebody has a really heavy coating, I might say 5 scrapes off the tongue. If someone has a light, I might say 3. Just depends on how the digestion is functioning. If digestion is functioning pretty well, the coating will be less. The number of times you have to scrape is less. But the main thing I see is people wanting to really scrape the tongue. It's just a nice gentle pull over the tongue that really creates uh, a new palate, a new, ability to take in something new for the day. Good. Can you travel with the tongue scraper? Was afraid the TSA. The one that Jenny, or that, let's see, Jess posted, I was just looking for the link. It has a little travel bag. Mine has and I don't have any, I don't get any kickbacks from this company. I just really like their tongue scraper. Comes in a little travel bag. I put my little travel bag, I put it in my job kit and I travel. It's a lovely one. Oh, good. Corinne says she travels with it, no problem. Fabulous. Okay, good. So Ratracharya, I'll put that here. Ratracharya. Those are nighttime routines. In the 4 weeks that we're doing the Dinacharya, I touch on a few of those because whatever we do at night, also whatever we link to at night, the science of linking, that also can help benefit how the sleep goes. right? So if we do these nighttime routines, they set us up for a good night's sleep, and then they also prepare us for the Dinacharya that come into the morning. So, I just want to kind of end it and say, and then I'll open it up to questions and say that, if I could, I would only teach about Dinacharya. I mean, I love everything about Ayurveda, but there is something very profound when the textual reference says, when you do this Dinacharya, you have the potential to affect every possible balancing of your body. So you have the potential to be healthy by doing the morning ritual. We will not cover them all in the class that I do because there are so many and it can be overwhelming. But what I recommend is people come, take it, then take it again. Just even if you just stay on this call, you start one thing around Brahma Muhurta, because just the new linking will start to create the new pattern so that there's space away from the, things that are creating negative or imbalanced patterns in the body. Okay, so I'm going to just stay and see if anybody has any questions about, or maybe you have a specific bad habit that you want some advice on, because I just touched on. I'll just speak to this before I ask that and say, you're welcome, Dylan. That I see a lot of people at night having trouble with things, like linking to things at night before bed. So I've done different sort of tips and tricks with different people based on what's happening. But I see a lot of people screens at night, TV at night, alcohol at night, a lot of things that are creating imbalance or disturbance to the sleep. And what I'll say, general rule of thumb is slow and steady. So this kind of incremental less, 5 minutes less, 10 minutes less, half a glass less, that I would say that's a general trajectory, because the body has now gotten, especially if it's years of a certain pattern, has gotten very comfortable with a certain way of being. So the body will go, if you take it away immediately, the body goes, well, wait, I need that. It starts to need that. So just reducing and then replacing, so reduction, slow and steady, moving in a direction, and then you might find that you need to replace it with something. So for me, I started to do a little bit more books on tape at night because I was finding myself in mystery, binge watching mystery. I moved to a place where it's very dark in the winter. And I found myself in Masterpiece Theater things at late at night. And I was like, this is affecting my sleep, which a little bit, again, is fine, but is it affecting your sleep? Is it affecting your digestion? So I started to do a little more books on tape, or just actual reading, or a little bit of writing. And now I'm linking to those things more, then the desire for the other things are less, right? As I start to bring in the new linking. Okay. Now I'll stop and listen to any questions anybody might have. Specific, things that you might think are creating imbalance, or habits that might be creating imbalance for you. You can type them into the chat if you want as well.
How about exercising too much?
Oh, that's a good one. Fabulous. So what I do with that, I always like to first explain a little, because a lot of times when people know why, this is how I work. If I know why, then I'm more bought in. So if I explain a little bit about why exercise can be, again, depends on the constitution. If somebody is, you know, kapha out of balance, it might be a correct amount of exercise. But the first thing I always like to do is try to have the person move the exercise to what's called the kapha kala, or the kapha time of day. So morning time. Because if you move your exercise to the morning time, it's builds bala, it builds strength. If you're exercising during the time of kapha, it builds strength. If you're exercising during the time at night, it will aggravate vata. So you have to, just knowing that can be helpful for some people. And then also talking about things in terms of tissues. If somebody has a lot of depletion in their tissues and they're overly exercising, they might notice that instead of building muscle, they're losing muscle, or there's a little bit of a depletion in their energy or their vitality or things like that. I might explain to them sort of this idea that over exercise can deplete the tissues rather than build the tissues. So I always start, I don't, if again, is someone open? If someone comes in like, I'm exercising and I don't want you to change it, I might not start there. But if they came to me and said, I feel like I'm over exercising, then I might move when they exercise, slow and steady movement to the morning. Because if I know, even if it's over exercising, it's in the morning, they're still going to build strength. Whereas if it's at night, they're going to be depleting and creating more vata aggravation in the body. But slow and steady, I might help them migrate things over. Yeah, great question. Any other sort of negative habits that you might see or experience, or maybe you have, or you would want some? Oh, and Jess just posted, we're starting this Thursday, right? Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Snacking too much. Great. So, Whitney, are you scraping your tongue? Let's see, because sometimes just scraping your tongue can help reduce snacking. But let's see.
I was in the habit of scraping my tongue all the time, and then I switched bedrooms, and my bedroom is in a different place, and I didn't bring my tongue scraper up. It's downstairs, and it's a really silly thing but I have stopped because I just need to take it to my room upstairs, and I haven't. So no,
So
I'm not tongue scraping anymore.
okay. So I would say from a Dinacharya perspective, that's a wonderful place to start. Um, because when we scrape our tongue, and people are like, "What? I scrape my tongue, it's gonna help me snack less." And I'm like, "Yes." Because when we scrape our tongue, basically the ama or the buildup in the body is what's dictating the snacking. It's like, I need some chips, I need some pretzels, I need when there's sticky residue. So the idea is you take some food into your agni, to your digestion, and you create nutrients and waste. And if we don't have a very good functioning or well-functioning digestion, or even if it's slightly out of balance, we'll create ama. And ama, I think I can do a long A here, yes. Is like a byproduct, a sticky residue or a byproduct. So whenever we have that sticky residue, the sticky residue is really wanting the snacking, or even maybe not snacking isn't you're eating snacking on good things, but maybe it's snacking on Doritos or, sugary candy. Whenever we scrape our tongue in the morning, we will start to create some peristalsis in the digestion. That ama will reduce. And when the ama reduces, the craving or the desire for that, sugary, snacky, candy, whatever it is, food, even the overabundance of snacking will reduce. Because when there's that sticky residue, I think of it like a person. It's like, can I have some of this? Can I have some of that? But as that reduces, just the desire. I remember when I started Ayurveda and I grew up in Austin, Texas, so I had a lot of chips and salsa, and it was always my go-to with chips. And when the ama reduced, I noticed that the desire for the chips was less. And it wasn't, chips aren't bad, they're just being chips, but my desire for them was less. So you'll just notice over time, you start linking to the dinacharya and some of the, negative things that I hate to say negative, some of the things that create imbalance in our bodies disappear. Good. Not sure if this is a bad habit, but I feel anxious if I wake up before 7 a.m. If I give myself an extra hour until 7:38, I feel more grounded in my day. That usually is more a function of vata. Vata being out of balance will want to sleep in. And if vata is really out of balance, then if you wake up in the Brahma Muhurta, then vata could create some vata symptoms, a little anxiety. So I would say stick to the 738 now and then pacify Vata. But the other Dinacharya can help pacify Vata as well. But that's usually because Vata needs a little more sleep. Vata needs a little more nourishment from its nervous system. Great question. Anybody else? Jess, do you have any?
No, I was going to share though, that one of the things that I really like about, I did the Exploring Dinacharya with you when we had it last
Oh
year,
yeah, you did.
and
That's
that,
right.
like it's not about, I think one of the things we get hung up on, and what you're so great about reminding us is that, all you're doing is gathering like helpful tools, because
Yeah.
always we're going to, fall off. And I always struggle with waking up early, right? But when I find myself slipping into letting myself sleep more and more, like thinking about getting back to Dinacharya and like those combined rituals, routines, it helps me get back towards where I want to be, right? Like having
Right.
these like, like
Right.
what you're really giving people, or what Dinacharya really do, is sort of create like, okay, so we all get out of balance, we all find ourselves slipping, right? These habits like screens, all these things we can't get rid of. um but hey, if it gets out of control, there's a real easy playbook by which
Yeah,
you can start to come back into control, and
I
it's
love
like
it.
it's clear. So that's just one
Well,
thing that I've taken throughout the year, because it's not
yeah.
that like I've been able to wake up consistently before 7,
Yeah.
right? But when
Yeah.
it starts to slip and I notice I'm having a harder and harder time, it's like, okay, it's not just wait. And I think too, it shifts the perspective of, it's not just waking up before 7. It's
Yeah.
a dinacharya, and a specific, has a purpose.
Yeah. I love that thread of what you're saying because it's, a lot of times people are like, oh my God, these are the rules. And I'm like, no, these are just like, it's just routines that are here to help you. I mean, that's what I hear you saying. And even from my own experience, like I do, several of them, and then I might kind of come back to one or two and then kind of come like you're talking about, sort of ramp it up as needed for my own body and balance. I love that. So somebody just shared, sometimes I'm hungry and need to eat before I can complete all my ritual in the morning. Sometimes that has to do with, well, not sometimes, that has to do with Agni, with digestion. So working on digestion will then in turn support that. Um, a lot of There are discrepancies with different Ayurvedic teachers of mine who will say no food before practice. And then some will say some warm liquid if somebody has a lot of vata, or what we call vata vitiation, or pitta out of balance, where vata or pitta are very high because some people can't sustain through a whole practice. I find that if there is like a practice of yoga, meditation, if possible, then you're trying to wait and eat till after the practice, but that might be a bigger, you might have to do some more work on digestion for that to happen. But I've been able to give somebody something warm and nourishing, liquid, and then continue on with some of the practice. The idea is that some of the practices in the Dinacharya are the idea that like we're going to be oiling our body. That's a kind of nourishment. So if there's an oiling of the body, then in the Agni, the digestive fire hasn't already taken food in, it can actually absorb and get nourished by the oil that we put on our body. Sometimes that alone can help people when they tend to get really hungry first thing in the morning. I'll have them oil, get that nourishment from the oil, do some practice, and that can usually tide them over. But sometimes we have to work on digestion more than that. That's a great, great share. Good. Anything else? I'm here. Well, hopefully you guys will join this Thursday, or Accessible Ayurveda. Jenny has just done it twice. I don't know if you'll be joining us again, Jenny, but it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see everybody, to meet everybody. I will stop the recording and stay on in case somebody didn't want to share anything with the recording. But it was a pleasure to see you all, and I will see you all soon.
Oh.